Welcome to News with a View. Your host, John A. Costa. Today is May 9th, 2025, and this is episode 62. We're going to keep this one short tonight. I promise you, no 1 hour programming. I still have my allergies going. I refuse to take any more medication. We changed some things up. You could see that I have my newest little toy over here, which is not from Mandalorian, but it is really part of Mandalorian. So we are happy with that. That was our latest purchase from Disney. Tonight, we're going to focus on what has happened in Newark, New Jersey, between the mayor and ICE. So let me just go into my favorite camera right there. Go on. I got to get these props to go a little bit better, but it is what it is. So today, Mayor Ross Baraka and 3 congresspersons, Bonnie Watson Coleman, LaMonica McClever, and Rob Menendez. Went to the detention center in New Jersey and demanded entrance into it to inspect the facilities. Well, ICE kind of told them, you can't come in. We're actively doing things right now. Did you call? Did you speak to someone? Nope. They came in, and the representatives from Congress said that part of their overview and oversight allows them unfettered access. And that's not true. That's not true. If they call, and if you make the proper announcements and say, on this day I would like to come, and unless there's something so wanky going on, they will allow it. They won't deny, congressmen or congresspeople from that district access. They just won't do it. But they will say, hey, right at this moment, you cannot. You just can't show up. They eventually allowed the Congress people in. But the mayor got a little testy and tried to bully his way in. ICE wasn't going to have anything with that, and they arrested him. They put the cuffs on him and dragged him off. And guess what? That's what happens. They gave him repeated warnings that he must leave the property, and he refused. Now, of course, the Congress people, scream it's a breach of their authority. They can't do it. Yeah, they can do it. They absolutely have the power to do that. The mayor would probably... I would have been told, no, he can't go in there because he has no right to it. But the Congress people could have said, he's an invited guest and we're taking him with us. And I would think that at that point, it would best just to let them in. And, but not just showing up like that. So this is the first volley of people who think that they can do this and demand where you don't have a right to demand. You can request access. And I would say, like, again, for the Congress people, yeah, they might have, since it's federal money going into there, you know, they have a right. Now, if they're state representatives, that could be a little bit more stickier of a problem for them. Now, what is it? Helena Baba is the Attorney General for the New Jersey district in that area. And she reported the incident right up to the, president. I haven't heard what the president had to say about it yet, but I'm sure it will be great. When these people start acting above the law, and they scream, "Oh, Trump," and that whataboutism. The courts don't want to hear about whataboutism. So I'm sure that the mayor will get a lot of press out of this, but he's going to take a lot of heat. And he's going to scream, "They put their hands on me. They did this, There, you were trespassing. That's what happens. That's what happens. And when you don't listen to lawful order of the police, you get arrested. You want to make a stand. That's where you want to make your fight. That's the line in the sand for you. Fine, go at it. He gets his day in court, and you can't come onto federal property like that, and that's federal property. So again, this all these people are doing is driving that 21% approval rating down even further. It's just not a smart way to go. Now, Stephen Miller was saying that they're trying to now go to the courts and ask him to remove habeas corpus from people that are being deported. Now, the president can do that, and presidents have done it. Lincoln, Grant. Lincoln did it during the Civil War. Grant did it during the Reconstruction period. And, of course, FDR used it during World War II. But interesting thing about that is that Wilson never used that during World War I. And there was a lot of anarchists running around back then. And it's interesting. That period of time, from like the 1917s, from the Russian Revolution up through the 20s and 30s, saw a lot of things going on. And but President Bush used it after 9/11 for a while. So It isn't like this is, new territory or new ground or, it's never been tried before. The president could always do it, but never did. That's been used. And all the president really needs to do, you don't need a war, you don't need an invasion, you don't need any of that stuff. You could, if that was the case, you could exercise it. That is a valid reason. But the last part of that act and right under the executive powers says any threat to the citizens. So all he needs to do is say, hey, we have 12 million people here that shouldn't be here. I call that an invasion. All right. Now the courts might have a little bit of a problem with that. But I think the essence of what he's trying to do is, deport these people. You're caught. That's it. There's no documentation on you. You're out. Whereas now there will be, but by the president, he's not testing. This is not testing the limits. This is more now defining the limits of the executive power. It's interesting. The president is doing a lot of things that the Constitution, in its broad language, allows. But, of course, you could take exception to that, and you must then take it up. That's the problem. Again, now, I've said it yesterday. I've said it in another of my podcasts. District judges. You got to take it to a federal level. You can't just have a district judge somewhere impede the executive branch. And there would be no issue with them taking it to the federal level. They can do that. But the easy skip for them is to take it to a district judge and just have a district judge go, nope, not going to do it, not going to allow it. That's not their job. That's not their job to interpret the actions of the executive branch. In that sense. I mean, everyone has to, as a judge in law enforcement, and has to abide by our Constitution and the rights therein. So I'm not saying, no, they can do whatever they want. No, they can't. But there are boundaries. And I think again, I can't see the Supreme Court, when it does hear it, and they will hear it, going along and saying, yeah, district judges can jam up the works. I just don't see that happening. And in this case, this will get a lot of press. And it will give every little mayor, hey, I can get my 15 minutes on national news. Look at me. And again, this is why the percentage rate of the Democrats are sinking. Because a lot of middle-of-the-road Democrats, moderate, and they're there. They're part of that base. Are saying, hey, crime is up. These people are illegal. And the courts are now saying you have 72 hours. You've got some rights in there that they must adhere to. And, I want to see the courts speed up and say to Trump, you can do this and you can't do that. And I think what the judges are all afraid of, and I mean all of them, and when I talk about the judge, I'm talking about the ropes, Supreme Court, is that if they have to interpret the intent of a lot of this stuff, they're going to have to side with Trump. And some of them would have absolutely no problem doing that. Where others would go, hey, what does the law say? What do the words say? What was the intent? And how is this done in the past? Do we have any ruling on it? Do we have any law on it? Do we have any precedent? Precedent does not mean it becomes law, just so you know. But it does give the courts an idea of, hey, we've seen this problem before and this has been the outcome, and, now you can challenge it, but no one ever challenged it before, but now you're challenging it. A lot of the stuff that's coming up is truly, truly constitutional law. Because there are words in the Constitution that address it. So you can't say, hey, this fell outside the scope, like Roe v. Wade. It fell out of the scope of the United States Constitution. And people say, well, the Ninth Amendment takes, No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But the states can take care of that. Now immigration is a federal issue. States have no dog in the fight. And shouldn't. It's federal law. It's federal law. So, some of you guys want to go out there and, I fought the law and the law won. That's what's going to happen. And, one of you guys are going to step over it. And it's going to go from a simple misdemeanor into, felony territory. And then you start having a problem. Now, you could also say, Trump was found felonious, Yeah. And you can challenge if you're convicted. You could appeal, just like Trump is appealing. But be careful, because this ball is rolling fast, and you think you're gonna, hey, I'll just wait for the next administration to get in there, and they'll fix it and they'll drop it. Trump's gonna push this stuff through, and you are gonna be punished. And if, as it appears it's going to look like, 2026 is going to be a bloodbath for the Democrats. You have Biden out there doing interviews that are absolutely damning to the DNC. Whether or not he's doing that on purpose or he's just, over the top. Or he's just, the ramblings of an old man. Right now, he's hurting the brand. What's going to happen when they have to start collecting money? When they start needing money? People aren't going to want to be on the losing side. That's not a good place to be with Trump. And you might have people going, hey, I'm not going to give it to Trump. I ain't going to give it to you either. I'm going to be on the sidelines here. And Trump is a person who says you're either for me or you're against me. Choose. I'll respect which one you do. Choose. Like in the, Holy Grail. You have chosen poorly. So it will be interesting to see what happens. But the Democrats are taking a beating, and they're going to continue taking a beating. And I keep saying this to the Democrats. Please, and if you're a Democrat listening to this, and I try to look at both sides. I honestly do. Go to your representatives and tell them, get on board. Get on board with Trump so you have a platform to speak to him on. There are common causes that you could get on board with Trump and go, yeah, that's the right thing to do. Yeah, I know that's the right thing to do. Yeah, but this other stuff, I don't think, really, Mr. President. And he'll listen. He might go, hey, you're absolutely crazy. I'm not listening to it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm listening to you. Because I represent everyone. Doesn't mean I got to obey you. But at least you get his ear. And if you've agreed with him and he realizes that you're reasonable, all Trump looks for is 51%. That makes him a winner. He doesn't want 100%. He'd love 100%. He just wants 51%. He wants to be a winner. He has that. That is part of his make. And the sooner you accept that and you go, all right, I understand what this guy's about, now I know how to approach this animal. In a sense, and I'm not saying that Trump's an animal. I'm just saying that's how you'd have to look at it. If you're trying to get something from him, you're not going to poke the bear. You're going to pet the dog, pet the cat. You're going to go, oh, nice doggy, nice. You're going to make nice. So. Other things in the news other than mayors being arrested. The India-Pakistani conflict. It's been going on for, since 1947. Thank you, British Empire. You gave us the Middle East. You gave us Pan-Asia. And a lot of you gave us Africa. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Great Britain. So, they're lobbing missiles at one another. They're shooting rockets at one another. They're intercepting airplanes. I think today Pakistan said they had a dogfight or something, 72 airplanes and 5 Indian aircraft were lost. And they were all saying the PL-15, which is a Chinese-made air-to-air missile, which is actually a very good missile, except they got a little problem. China has a problem with their missiles. They're long range. I think PL-15 has a military NATO rating of about 190 miles. And that's radar-guided, self-radar, self-acquiring, self-tracking. I'm not certain if that radar, if that missile. They have other missiles that, like ours, they talk to one another. So if that missile going, hey, I'm going after this guy, don't target him. Go after the next guy. And they hunt, but they're not necessarily in a pack. So they're not going to take down one prey. They're going to go out and take them all. The problem that the Chinese had with their missiles is the battery. Those radar systems and acquiring electronics, they draw up a lot of power. And you got to remember, those batteries aren't on until the system is armed. And then they have to be, recharged through the aircraft. There are, just like anything else, you plug it in. But they've had problems where the missile will go the 190 miles. But it depends when that active radar turns itself on. And maybe at 170 miles out, the rocket's still going, but the battery's now on low. And it loses its ability to track. Now that's on the furthest reaches. So if they shot that missile and you were 35 miles out, well, you're going to have a hell of a day. It's a very good missile. The Chinese do make a kind of decent product. I mean, if it's anything like the stuff you get from Harbor Freight. But they make a lot of it. And it was the Russian mentality of, I don't need it to be beautiful. And I don't need it to be sleek. And I don't need it to be particularly accurate. But if I could build 100 of them for what it costs you to build one airplane, and I could shoot 30 of them at your airplane, and kind of figure 2 of them will hit you. They kill you in numbers. And the Chinese aircraft, they hold a lot of weaponry. The J-10 aircraft, which is Pakistan uses, with our F-16s, and they got a whole, that whole area is like a hodgepodge of everyone's aircraft. The problem with the J-10 is the engines are a little underperforming. Still a good airplane. Don't underestimate them. But they're a little under power. So in a real nose-to-nose confrontation, J-10 ain't going to last against a really, top-of-the-line F-18s and things like that. It won't. But against a MiG-29, an Su-30, a Mirage. I don't even know if anyone's even still using the French, but they got the Rafale, and according to them, they shot 3 of them down. Now, that's a French-built aircraft. Very good. But again, you're only as good as the pilot flying it and the plane's performance. Plus, if you're shooting what is called above the horizon, and your missiles, can be shot through radar guidance and airplanes, and like we have the Hawkeye and other surveillance aircraft that we can coordinate. So does China, and so does India, and so does Pakistan. So depends on how stealthy the rocket is, that and how good the radar in the opposing aircraft has, that they pick that up 30, 40 miles out. There's stuff that they can do, jam and shaft, and though 30 miles out at Mach 3.5 or higher on some of these missiles, what's that, about 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds? So in close quarters, yeah, those rockets are deadly. Those rockets are deadly. And I think that this will escalate up now. I think today Pakistan said that India shot 5 ballistic missiles at the Pakistani airfields and supply depots, and most of them were intercepted. Now, when you hear most of them, was that 2? Was that 4? So they're saying some got through. That no one is saying anything, and you can't believe either side. Like they say, the first casualty of any war is the truth. So, though U.S. is saying, well, they might have lost 2, India might have lost 2 or 3 aircraft, but none of them mixed it up. They're saying nose on nose. These were 30, 40 miles, behind their borders, and they're shooting, and these planes crashed on India territory. They're, even some of the missiles they said landed on India territory. I don't know. You can't believe them. You don't know. So that's what's going on with that. It's a bad day, Talking about bad days, the Department of Justice has opened up now an official investigation of Letitia James and her alleged fraudulent disclosures on forms to get federal loans. And again, I keep saying that she's not going to go to jail for that. It's not that high of a crime. But it is a crime. And it's a federal crime. So, and they'll say, you defrauded the bank, you defrauded the government, you defrauded this. And they'll look back on some of her paperwork. Like the one where they said that she said her father was her spouse. And there's nothing they're going to be able to do about that. That's way past the time that anyone should care about. But here's the kicker when you talk to the feds. If you mislead them, if you lie to them, even on something where that's so far long ago, you will go to jail. I guarantee that to you. You know what? You ask Martha Stewart how that worked out for her. Now, Miss James is a lawyer. So the first thing when they come knocking, they go, we'd like to talk to you about this. I'd love to talk to you. You call my attorney. You work out a schedule. And I'll fit it in. And we'll talk. But only with my attorney present. Now, after this point, I'm exercising my Fifth Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights. I'm going to... everything. I'm putting it all out. All my rights. And you stick to that. You don't answer them. And just because a person exercises their Fifth Amendment right, even though some courts have said you can presume their guilt, I don't know how. Now, in her case, they have documents and forms and stuff that she signed, and it would be very tough for her to dance around that. And I think what they're just going to have her do is admit to an error and I don't even know if there's going to be any fine or anything, or I can't see it. We're not talking, you're not talking anything much here. You're talking about spitting on the sidewalk. But they'll prove that she spat in the sidewalk. And that's all they need to do. Where this will become the major, and I've said this before in my other podcasts, if you have listened, please listen to me, is that they will show that she has a propensity of not being ethical. And like I said, the first thing they teach you in law school, your first course, is ethics. Because without them, you got a problem. So I think that they'll build up enough on her, and she will eventually have to talk to the feds, even to say, I under advisement of my counsel, I exercise my Fifth Amendment rights. And she could go all the way through court with that. But at that point, when she won't answer the question, and she won't do it, the judge would tell the jury, you have every right at this point to use your judgment on guilt or innocence. Her statements or her lack of statement can then be used. So, she wants to go that route. She can. I can tell that's going to be a bad day for her. Bad day. All right. We're on that. I want to get this thing done soon. I'm going to go back to the Biden. A lot of Democrats are very, very upset that Biden has gone out there now and now is talking about the loss and how, he would have won against Trump. And he knew that Harris was going to lose. Yet he got on TV every night, Not at the end, but, they all went out there and said, she's going to win, she's going to win, she's going to win. And again, this becomes a credibility problem. And then it becomes an ethical problem. Would they have gotten on there and said, hey, listen, we would have loved to have Joe Biden run, but he just can't do it. And we're not going to run a candidate that, now looking at him, he couldn't complete his 4 years. We can't see him completing it, and we're not selling you, pig in a poke, as they used to call it, or whatever. So they're not going to, we're not going to do that to you. And Vice President Harris, who, if anything would have happened to Joe Biden, would have stepped into his place anyway. And we had every confidence in her with Joe Biden. We have every confidence in her now. And I think would they have gone down that road? But I think they were shell shocked. And again, you had people who the media trusted, even though the media, you can't trust the media, where, president's doing great. Schumer, the president's doing great. I've never seen the guy better. Schiff, And then 8 weeks later, And people were saying this, 2 years ago. Hey, this, is there something wrong with the president? He stops all his meetings by 11:30 in the morning. We can't get access to him. Never held a press conference. You couldn't talk to him for more than 10 seconds, and the news only threw out 15 seconds of little segments of him speaking, never the whole speech where, it went off the rails. And then when, people did say, hey, he's off the rails. Oh, you're a Trumpster. Clown, you're all clowns. And then you find out that, hey, this guy has a real major problem. And they knew it, and they hid it from us, even though it was hiding in plain sight. So I think the Democrats are going to have a huge problem come 2026. And I think that all these, this Baraka, and any of these governors that are going to be arrested and, violating law and everything else, that's all going to be on some guys running for Congress as a Republican against a seated Democrat. To go, hey, this is the Democrats. This is, even though that Democrat didn't cross that and do that, that's all part of the hive. He's a drone or she's a drone. And they just do what they're told to do, And people are going to have a problem. Democrats in blue states going to have a problem 2026. Can't say 2028 yet. But 2026, you're going to have a problem. And we're already into May. We're already into May. We're moving along quickly, folks. And I think that there is, at 21%, even if they could raise that up 15%, 37%, 36%, maybe. You're not winning. You can't win. It doesn't happen. And there is no let up with the left. There's no let up. Even though AOC and Bernie Sanders is not the Democratic Party, David Hogg is. And when he comes out and says the reason for these shootings and everything, we can blame democracy for that. Came out and said that. That humming was by the air conditioning, and now that's my switcher, which the fan comes on. I'm trying to deal with that. But the Democrats, I don't know how they fix themselves. there's not going to be an easy way for them to fix themselves. How do you go from 20% to 51% or 70% or 60% or 48%? You know, you're never going to make everyone happy. But 21%, 20%, it's unheard of. Unheard of. And when they say, well, Trump's numbers are dropping too, you know, they're dropping. I keep saying this before. When you have 79% of your base that's not on board with you, and you lose 10% of that to the other team, mostly in races that have been this close, on the national level. But you have a lot of states now that are in play. You're in trouble. You are in big, big trouble. And I don't know what's going to happen if the houses, the Congresses, get more red. Does that embolden the president? It might, but there's still avenues where people can challenge the president or his agenda and things. There's still avenues, legal avenues. But I think the courts are going to get fed up with saying that, you know, we're going to sue him every time he uses a paperclip. Or we're going to go to the courts every time he signs a piece of paper. I think the courts are just going to turn around. Hey, this is what the president can do. And your problem isn't with the president. Your problem is with Congress. Oh, you don't control Congress now? Yeah, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Where we have to go back to is that when a person wins, they represent everyone. They just don't win or support the people that supported them. They got to support everyone. So that's a major problem. And that is a... All right, let me look for the word. That now has become a point that no one wants to go to, because it has now degenerated to a them and us, and not we. So it is a major problem. I don't know how you get over it. I just, honestly, I don't know how you get over that. And you have the Democrats just still trying to jam stuff down people's throats. And to what end? It didn't work for you in the past. It's not going to work now. So what are you doing? Why are you going to a playbook that has failed? Because you have no one there to guide you. And then the people that do go up there and go, well, your Elizabeth Warrens, your Sanders, your David Hogg, your AOCs, your Schiff. Schiff should never have won. I'll never forgive you, California, for that. But then again, who'd they run against them? An ex-baseball player. I mean, Steve Garvey. What were you thinking? Because this is what happens. You get into a political thing where they go, well, I'm not going to give up my political career. And I know that, there's just no way I can get the numbers needed. So you have to have a sacrificial one with Steve Garvey. He could still sign autographs at baseball conventions and make money. So, and that was Harris. Harris was a safe bet. We could lose her and save the Congresses. And they couldn't do that either. And they go, well, it wasn't that close of a race. It doesn't matter how close it was. I keep saying, he didn't win the majority. Trump only got 48%. Well, if you take the total votes of everyone that voted, that's the 100% mark. Not the people that could have voted or didn't vote or whatever. You had not the people that, Bernie Sanders took, 1.7% of the votes, or this one other. You take that other away and you go against what the majority of the people who voted, and you go, there's 100%. Take that number together. How many did you get? Well, you got 53% of that number. That's the majority. And you don't get points for getting the majority. You don't get points for getting more than the Electoral College states you need to win. You don't get extra. You don't get extra power for that. So it's meaningless. In the sense that you won. And you just have to keep in your mind that you might have only won by 3% or 2.5%. So you got to make sure your policies and your agenda keeps that 2.5%. And that's the problem. All right, I said I was going to start off tonight, and I said this to myself. I was going to write on the top, say hello to Chris and Rowan, Danielle and Paul and Cannoli at the beginning of the show, not at the end of the show. And yet, I Joe Biden'd. It happens. I didn't talk for more than an hour. This is going to wrap it up. This will be about 40 minutes, if that. I don't know. I turned my clock off. Actually, I didn't turn it off. I never started it. Joe Biden. So that's tonight's show. Today's the 9th. There was no big announcement, from Trump. I mean, the big announcement. What was the big announcement? A deal with the UK. It's a deal, and he hasn't had many of them, but it's a big one. It's a big partner. Canada then will get on board, and Mexico and our North American, Australia, they'll get on board. And Trump is really doing a good job with it, actually, because we've had trade agreements that have been floating around for years that never got done. And he's forcing it. And like I said, with the trade, it's an inconvenience for us. Will cost some people more money. Won't deny that. But in the end, it's China. And we don't got the jobs. The jobs we do have is homegrown jobs. We got them. China needs that money coming in. It needs to feed the machine. And you start starving that machine, and you see how fast that machine shuts down. And this is hurting them big time. And yeah, they hold our bonds, and these people hold our bonds, and we do this, and yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's not going to help you right now. Might later on, because they might turn around and go, hey, yeah, you think you got me back over there. All right, you did. Nice play. Now you need me to buy your bonds with your money that you gave us. We're not doing it. That's when the fun really starts, folks. All right. With that, I'm going to say goodnight. As always, give to charity. Say a prayer. If you can't give to charity, or you know, just buy a couple extra cans of food and donate them at a shelter, at a church, at wherever, at a food bank. You know, if 200 or 300 people showed up extra a week with 5 cans, that 5 cans turns into 1,500. Now, granted, it might be 10, 15 places you go to, but it's, even if they got 5 cans, it was 5 cans more than they had. So, say a prayer. If you're going to give it to a charity, give it to a registered charity, charity you know. Don't become a victim, helping a victim. And with that, I am going to attempt to fade to black this time. So, as I fade to